So here is a question for you, right? We know how all of this Farage bank stuff started. We know that they withdrew his banking facilities, that there were some concerns within the upper echelons of Coots, which is itself owned by NatWest. We know that there were some concerns from a PR perspective of what kind of attention this individual might attract to the bank, and so a decision was made to relax the relationship at the time of the maturing of his mortgage. We know that. Now, we also know over the last 6 weeks that this thing has fucking ballooned into hysteria, into conspiracy theory, where now it's a conversation not about any of that stuff. Now it's a conversation about woke banks. Now it has morphed and contorted into an ongoing debate about virtue signalling in the City of London, about woke banks, which even saying that word or phrase sounds utterly fucking ridiculous, doesn't it? Woke banks. And to have Rishi Sunak railing against them, the Prime Minister of the UK, an ex-banker himself, to be up there saying, you know, front page of the Express, I will shut woke banks. No, you fucking won't. You're an ex-banker yourself. If the banks do, you know, shut down in the UK, it's going to have fucking nothing to do with what you say or you demand of them. I'll tell you exactly what's going to happen, right? The UK banks are going to listen to a speech made by Rishi Sunak, who is going to say something like, these banks are going to need to be regulated to make sure that they're not persecuting people and frustrating their freedom of speech, right? That's the sort of thing he's going to come out with. Or maybe it'll be the Chancellor, who also has vociferously defended Nigel Farage. Or maybe it'll be fucking Keir Starmer, who has also defended Nigel Farage. One of them, like, whoever it is, one of them's going to give a big speech, and here's what's going to happen. The banks are going to go, uh-huh, okay, we're just going to pack the fuck up and move to Frankfurt. That is what's going to happen. Nobody's going to shut the banks. Certainly not an ex-banker like Sunak, when he knows as an ex-chancellor and as an educated gentleman that financial services is our bread and butter. If the banks fuck off, we really are fucked. Honestly, all of this posturing, this performative outrage and support for Nigel Farage as though he's the fucking victim is utterly fucking ludicrous. But anyway, here's my question for you. Here's my question. So we know where it started. We know what it became over the last 6 weeks. The hysteria, the performative blah, 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 the tabloid headlines. We know that the press have covered it infinitely more than other stories that I would see as more important and of greater concern and to hold the public interest more than this, you know, like Dan Wootton, for example. Let's talk about that shit. But where is it going? That's my question for you. Where do you think this is headed? Because I thought, I would have put money on this. I would have put my last mortgage-ravaged 10 British pounds on the fact that Nigel Farage was going to surf this wave of bashing banks and virtue signalling financial services. I thought he was going to ride that wave directly in to a campaign about a cashless society. That's truly where I thought this was headed. Because he's exactly the sort of person who would, you know, rail against the globalists and be, I don't know, anti-net zero and, you know, pro-Brexit. And that kind of person, when I've met them through different circles that I've moved in, that kind of person is also always interested in crypto, you know, and it fits precisely within his sort of personality type. I think the grifting, the wanting to be a thought leader, the wanting to jump on the next thing that's going to garner him enough YouTube videos. No judgment there, son. He's exactly the sort of person who would jump on the cashless society thing and have it as a means to sell his fucking Farage coin. You know? Isn't that exactly the sort of thing you can imagine him doing? But enough about me, what I thought he was doing. Where do you guys think this is headed? Like, do you think he's going to continuously campaign to carpet bomb British financial services until the point where all of the staff and executives and CEOs and CFOs, all of them are scared to speak out against Brexiters or to even run their businesses in a sort of optimal, sensible, pragmatic fashion where they look at stats and blah, blah, that they're scared then. After all of this, that they're scared to run a business in the UK for fear of offending Brexiters and right-wingers and then irking the sensibilities of regulators and the government. Are we going to get to a point where financial services, whether there is a speech by a Sunak or a Starmer or the Chancellor or whoever, are we going to get to a point where the banks are just like, it is too volatile and totally business unsustainable for us to run a bank in London now? There is political interference. It's going to become the exact opposite of what Nigel Farage thinks he's the victim of. Do you know what I mean? It's going to, he thinks he's the victim of some sort of financial persecution by the state or by the establishment or whatever. But actually what's going to happen is that all of those banks, all those financial services institutions, they're all going to be like, we can't operate in this territory with the establishment stepping in and meddling. It is an establishment plot in exactly the way that Farage says, except it's totally in reverse. Anyway, enough about me. Where do you guys think this is headed?